Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'll try to teach you guys how to draw a female human figure the easiest way, also with the least knowledge of anatomy, perspective, and so on. So without any further ado, let's get started. The first thing you need is a good reference, and what I mean is a reference that has a fluid pose, like opposite angles for shoulders and hips. Just try and find one you can study from. So the second thing to do is analyzing and observing the reference. And what I like to do is drawing a line represents the angle of the shoulder, and then another straight one for the pelvis, and a curve connecting the center of the collarbone or the center of the neck to the center of the rib cage and then to the center of the crotch. And that we call the line of action. It determines the flow of the whole torso. You can consider it as a center line for the torso. Some artists use the spine to attach neck, ribcage, and pelvis to each other. But I'll demonstrate that on the next reference. And finally, a circle as a representation of the head. Now guys, for that line on the pelvis, I decide to put it to determine also the position of the hip bones, because some artists use the iliac crest as the guideline. So it is important to know where to place the lines, because you might end up drawing the pelvis a little bit low or even high, so you get a too short or too long torso. So keep that in mind. Now the second step is drawing the torso using some curves and straight lines in a gestural way, like showing the stretchy part on the left and the pinch on the right. And I mean my left and my right, not the model right and left. As I said, using simple curves and straight lines. You can add a triangle to determine the placement of the crotch, and also an X shape for the rib cage, but still not necessary on this stage. Just keep it simple till the end, while using again more curves and straights for the hands and the legs. Just keep the flow. On this stage, we try to convey to the viewer the flow and the shape of the whole body. I'll start over again and keep in mind that these are not steps to follow. I'm just trying to show you how you can approach drawing the figure in different approaches, and you finally decide what helps you to get to the final result. So, shoulder and pelvis angle, then an X shape for the rib cage, which you can determine the start and the end of it observing the reference. But if you want it to be precise, then you gotta answer these questions. How tall is the model? And you can use the head as a unit measure, like the model is 7.5 or 8 heads on top of each other. And then from there you can measure. But again, in this stage, I'm only showing the placement and just analyzing the shapes, so don't stress yourself. I'm drawing the pelvis as a half sphere tilting forward, because for the body to keep balanced, it is created with a tilted back rib cage and a tilted forward pelvis. And just notice that the pelvis line is almost on the halfway of the pelvis. And don't mind the area between the pelvis and the rib cage yet. I just use it to show the attachment of the abdomen to them. And again, no need for that yet. So the next question is, why you should study perspective in order to draw a human figure? And the answer is the construction stage. which is simplifying the human body by constructing it into basic shapes like boxes, spheres, and cylinders. And in order to do it, you need to know how these shapes act in space. And most of the time, beginners study perspective but still can't apply that while drawing the human figure. And I'm here to help. So, what we need is a 1 point perspective and 2 point perspective. So, for the 1 point, we have a straight horizontal line, which is the horizon line. And since we are talking about a 1 point, then we have a point called the vanishing point, where all the lines fades into it. Like when you are standing on a railway, you already know that these rails are parallel to each other, but when you extend your sight to the point that they will fade into 1 point, just try it. So when we try to draw a box, if it is on your eye level, which is on the horizon line, we only going to see a square, which is the frontal plane. But if the box is above the horizon line or our eye level, then we're going to see the lower plane. And if it is below the horizon line or our eye level, then we're going to see the upper plane. And keep in mind, we only use the 1 point perspective if the box is facing the viewer and not tilted to any side. And that would take us to the 2 point perspective, which we're going to have two vanishing points where also lines fades into them, but also intersects in space. And the same concept goes here. Above the horizon line, then lower plane is shown. Below the horizon line, the upper plane is shown. And that's it, guys. Now it is time to apply that on our human figure. So let's consider our head as a box, just for the sake of explanation. So the first thing is that the head is looking forward. So we are talking about a 1 point perspective. So second thing is it looking up or down? And since the eyebrow line is higher than the ear line, then it is looking up. Also, we can see under chin. So that means also we have a box that the lower plane is shown. Now we can apply that on the rib cage and also the pelvis. Some would say the rib cage also face in front. And for me, it seems like her body, the right side of it is kinda tilted forward. So I'll deal with that as a 2 point perspective. Also, I can see the right side of her rib cage. So that's for me. And for the pelvis, I'm dealing with it as a 1 point perspective since I only see the frontal plane. And the pelvis in nature, as you can see from the profile view, is tilting forward. So we can see the upper plane. And that's all for this part, which is the torso. And again, guys, the same goes for the arms and legs, dealing with them as cylinders. But you can consider also if the cylinder is facing away from the viewer, then we're going to see the upper plane. If it is going towards the viewer, then we're going to see the lower plane. As you can see, for the right thigh, it is obvious that it is going towards the viewer, so we're going to see the lower plane. And finally, guys, I'll try to gather all the things I have observed into one, so it would help me to get to the final result. Now I have the body constructed with the least knowledge, and I can move now forward, drawing the muscles and so on. And actually, guys, you can, but you're still going to need another two skills, another knowledge area, which is overlaps. And the other one is observing and copying. But the drawback of this is struggling to draw from imagination. So keep that in mind. Now what I'm doing is drawing some muscles over cylinders, taking in consideration how they wrap around, how they overlap using some anatomy knowledge and also copying. Do I say they are 100% correct? No, but they look fine, and that's what I'm trying to show. Also, it gives you the motivation to study since you already have reached that stage, so you wanna keep going. So, what about my approach while drawing? Do I use all of that while drawing? And the answer is not always. But I keep all that in my mind while working, and I use the simplest forms to reach the final product. If I struggled, I just construct more. And now, guys, I'll do the same exact thing while drawing this model from the back. But the only difference is the line of action is going to be the spine. And that's all, guys. So I'll leave you with this one. And if you haven't joined my Discord yet, I'll leave the link down below on the description so you can participate and also practice and also show your work to the community there. And I'll always reply. So thank you guys for watching and see you in the next video.